All right, so today we are going deep into cloud security,
Definitely diving deep.
especially for anyone studying for the ISC2 CCSP exam.
Yes.
We've got a ton of study guides, a ton of notes,
So much material.
and we're going to go through and pull out the need-to-know info to
Exactly.
help you pass that test.
That's right. Think of this as your secret weapon
Mm-hmm.
for understanding these concepts instead of just memorizing.
Yeah, because security concepts can get really, really dense,
They can.
and we want to break it down.
Absolutely.
So first up, we've got identity and access management,
IAM.
or IAM, right?
Yep.
So making sure the right people
Right.
and the right systems are accessing the right resources in the cloud.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
Sounds simple enough, but
You would think so, but when you think about it,
yeah.
the cloud is so complex and
Mhm.
spread out
Mhm.
across all of these different platforms.
Mhm.
IAM is crucial.
Yeah.
It's like the control center for who gets in and what they can do.
So it's like a big digital bouncer for the cloud.
Exactly, yeah. And to really get IAM,
Okay.
you have to grasp these concepts of entities and identities.
Okay.
So imagine you're on a college campus, right?
Okay.
Busy college campus.
Yeah.
You've got all sorts of people,
Mm-hmm.
students, faculty, staff,
Visitors.
alumni, visitors, everyone.
Yeah.
They've all got different reasons for being there,
Right.
different levels of access they need.
Yeah, like a student can get into the library,
Exactly.
but maybe not into the faculty lounge.
Exactly, right?
Hmm.
So in the cloud world,
Yeah.
each one of those people would be an entity.
Okay.
But then within the campus system,
Yeah.
they have multiple identities. So someone like Bob
Okay.
could be a student,
Uh-huh.
but also an alumni and maybe a part-time staff member.
Okay, so he's wearing a lot of hats,
Yeah,
and each of those hats gives him different access.
exactly, right.
So how does this translate to actually securing stuff in the cloud?
Well, each identity has specific attributes tied to it. Things like their role, their department, maybe their security clearance level.
Okay.
And the IAM system uses these attributes to decide what resources each identity can get to.
Okay, so it's not enough to just know that it's Bob.
Right.
You have to know which Bob it is
Exactly.
and what that Bob is allowed to do.
Exactly. That's the point.
Okay.
So this is where the concept of access control comes in.
SX control.
So think of it as a set of rules that say who can access what.
Right.
And you can have physical access controls,
It's like key card.
key cards, security guards.
Uh-huh.
And then you can also have logical access controls,
Okay.
like passwords and permission settings.
Okay. So IAM is like bringing together all of those
Right.
physical and digital
Yeah.
controls
Oh.
to make like a big comprehensive
That's
security layer.
comprehensive security approach.
Yeah. Okay. But I bet there's a lot more to it than that.
There is.
So how about actually like verifying someone's identity?
Right. And then granting access. Like, what does that process look like?
Yeah. So you're talking about the 3 A's of security:
Re-A.
identification, authentication, and authorization.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that in the books.
Yes. You're going to have to know those for the CCSP exam.
Okay.
So imagine you're trying to get into a high security facility,
Okay.
like a government building or something.
Mm-hmm.
First, you got to identify yourself.
Okay.
Tell them who you are.
So, like, I flash my badge.
Exactly.
Guys, say my name.
Right, and that's identification.
Identification. Got it.
But that's not enough.
Right.
You also need to authenticate yourself.
Okay.
Prove you actually are who you say you are.
Okay.
So that's where things like passwords come in,
Okay.
or
Yeah.
biometrics,
Mhm.
security tokens, all that.
So it's like that second layer of proof that
Right.
only the real you would have.
Exactly.
Okay.
But even if you identify and authenticate correctly,
Right.
you still need to be authorized
Well, right.
to get into that specific facility.
That specific facility. Yeah.
Right.
So the security people need to check your credentials.
Against
That's their list. Yeah.
Okay.
And make sure you're actually allowed to be there.
So it's like having the right key card,
Yes.
but the guard still has to check that it unlocks the door
Exactly.
you're trying to open.
Exactly. And this whole process
yeah.
is happening all the time online,
Okay.
especially in the cloud,
Makes sense.
where you're accessing these resources remotely from all over the place.
Yeah, that's starting to make a lot of sense.
Good.
But man, I can see how it could get really complicated.
It does.
So many different users, so many
It
systems,
does get complicated.
applications, all talking to each other.
Absolutely.
The cloud.
And that's why understanding this is so important for anyone working in cloud security.
Yeah, especially if you're taking the CCSP exam.
Right.
So it's like the foundation
It is. It really is.
upon which everything else is built.
Yeah.
But we also can't forget about what happens when someone leaves the organization.
Yeah.
Or if their role changes.
You're talking about provisioning?
Yes.
And deprovisioning accounts.
Deprovisioning, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not just about setting up access.
No.
It's about knowing when to take it away.
Exactly. And this is where it gets a little tricky.
Okay.
Especially when you're dealing with sensitive data.
Yeah.
Complex cloud environments.
Yeah.
What if an employee leaves on bad terms?
Ooh, that's never good.
Or their account gets compromised. And they
Oh.
still have access.
Yeah.
They could really do some damage.
Yeah, that's a little scary.
It is.
So how do organizations handle this?
There are certain tools and techniques they use.
Okay.
That's where knowing about Active Directory comes in.
Okay. Active Directory.
Particularly in Windows environments.
Okay.
Active Directory lets you manage user accounts,
Okay.
set up groups, control access,
Mhm.
Disable accounts.
When someone leaves?
When someone leaves. Exactly.
Okay.
Delete accounts.
Okay, so it's like a big control panel with the whole network.
It is, yeah. And more companies are using automation to streamline this process.
To make it faster.
To make it faster, reduce errors.
Okay.
Make sure things happen on time.
So like if Bob leaves,
Right.
his access is automatically revoked.
Exactly.
That's smart.
It is, especially for bigger companies.
Yeah, where it would be a nightmare to keep track of it all manually.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got our entities.
Right.
We've got our identities, our 3 A's, and our account lifecycle management.
Yes.
Okay, so what's next?
Let's talk about how we actually authenticate users.
Okay.
How do we make sure they are who they say they are?
All right, so we're going beyond the username and password now.
We are, because as we know, passwords can be a problem.
Oh, tell me about it. I've got a notebook full of them that I can't remember.
Right, exactly.
So what are some other options?
We've got authentication factors.
Authentication factors.
And you'll need to know those for the CCSP.
All right, let's hear about those then.
Okay. Yeah, so think of authentication factors like layers of security.
Okay.
For your cloud accounts, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Right.
The more factors you use,
Yeah.
the harder it is for someone to break in.
So it's like putting extra locks on your door.
Exactly.
Makes it harder to break in.
Right.
Okay.
So traditionally, we talk about 3 main types.
Okay.
Something you know.
Okay.
Something you have.
Yeah.
Something you are.
Okay, so something you know that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
It's like passwords and pins.
Passwords, pins.
Security questions, that sort of thing.
Yeah, security questions.
Internet.
It's information that theoretically
Right.
only you should have access to.
Mm.
But as we all know,
Yeah, passwords can be guessed. They can be stolen.
they can be stolen.
You can brute force them
They can.
if you have enough computing power.
Exactly. That's where those other factors come in
Okay.
to strengthen things up.
So what about something you have?
Something you have. So this would be a physical object
Okay.
that's unique to you. So
Right.
like a smart card,
Yeah.
a security token
Mm-hmm.
that generates a one-time code,
Okay.
or even your smartphone
Okay.
that can get a push notification.
Right, so it's like a physical key
Yeah,
that proves you can get in.
exactly.
Okay, but what happens if you lose your token
That's a good question.
or your phone gets stolen?
Right, that's a concern.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of organizations use a combination
Okay.
of factors for security,
Yeah, that makes sense.
which brings us to
So-
something you are.
Something you are.
Okay, biometrics.
Ah, biometric.
Yes.
So like fingerprint scanning,
Fingerprint scan.
facial recognition,
Yep.
iris scanning, all that stuff.
All of that. And it's becoming more and more popular.
That's pretty high tech.
It is. But remember, no single factor is perfect.
Right.
They all have their pros and cons.
Yeah, passwords are convenient,
Right.
but they're pretty easy to compromise.
They are.
Physical tokens, you could lose them.
Yeah, you could lose it.
Someone could steal it.
Exactly.
Biometrics are unique,
Right.
but, there's privacy issues.
There are privacy concerns.
And they can be spoofed.
Yes, they can.
So it's all about choosing the right combination
It is.
based on what your organization needs.
Exactly. And their risk tolerance.
Yeah.
And speaking of combining factors,
Okay.
that brings us to multi-factor authentication.
Oh, yeah. MFA. I've seen that.
MFA.
In the study guides.
Yes. So this is basically like having multiple layers of security guarding your cloud accounts.
All right, give me an example.
Okay, so think of a hacker
Okay.
trying to break into a house.
Okay.
If they just got to pick one lock, that's
Yeah.
pretty easy.
Right.
But if there's multiple locks
Right.
with different mechanisms, it's way harder.
So if I use my password,
Right.
then I get a code sent to my phone,
Yes.
that's multi-factor.
That is multi-factor.
Okay.
You're combining something, with something you have.
Okay, yeah.
Much harder for the attacker.
Yeah, That makes sense.
Right.
What are some of the pitfalls people fall into with this?
Oh, yeah. There's definitely some things to watch out for.
Okay.
And this is where the CCSP exam might try to trick you.
Okay.
So, for example,
Okay.
using a password and a security question.
Okay.
That is not true multi-factor authentication
But why not?
because those both fall under
Yeah.
the same factor,
Yeah.
knowledge-based authentication.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So for true multi-factor, you need to diversify.
So you have to have different categories.
Different categories, yes.
Yeah.
Knowledge, possession, inherence.
Okay.
You got to mix it up.
So it's not just about adding more layers.
It's not just about more, no.
It's about making sure the layers are different.
Different, exactly.
Yeah.
Like a diversified portfolio.
Right. Like you don't want to put all your money in one stock.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And understanding this is key for the CCSP exam.
Okay.
They love to test those little nuances.
Okay. Good to know.
So pay attention to the details.
I'll definitely be studying that.
Good.
So multi-factor authentication,
Yeah.
it's not the only way to make things more secure
Right.
and easier.
Right.
Like what about single sign-on?
Single sign-on and federation.
Federation. Those are great.
Those sound pretty user-friendly.
They are. So single sign-on or SSO lets you log in once
Okay.
and get access to multiple applications
Yeah, okay.
without having to type your password every time.
So it's like having a master key that unlocks a bunch of doors.
Exactly.
Okay.
And from a security standpoint,
Yeah.
it's great because users only have to manage one strong password.
Right. Instead of like 20 weak ones.
Exactly. Reduces the risk of weak passwords
Okay.
or reusing passwords.
Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of that. A lot of people are.
Okay, so what about federation then?
Federation. So this takes SSO a step further
Okay.
by letting different organizations trust each other's systems.
Okay.
So imagine you're working with another company on a project
Okay.
and you need to use their resources.
Okay.
Instead of them creating a whole new account for you,
Right.
they can use Federation
Okay.
to give you access based on your existing credentials.
So it's like a reciprocal agreement between libraries.
Exactly.
Like you can use your library card at different branches,
Exactly.
even if they're in different states.
Exactly. It streamlines everything.
Okay, so it's all about collaboration
It is.
and making things easier.
Yes.
Okay, but behind the scenes, I bet it's pretty complicated.
There's a lot of technical stuff going on.
Yeah, break it down for us.
All right, so let's start with Kerberos and LDP.
Bring on the acronyms.
These are two important protocols.
Okay.
You're going to see them in your CCSP studies.
Okay.
So Kerberos is a ticket-based authentication system
Okay.
that's used a lot in enterprise environments,
Right.
especially with Microsoft Active Directory.
Active Directory again.
Okay. Think of it like getting a backstage pass at a concert
Okay.
that lets you into different areas.
So it's like verifying your identity
Right.
and then giving you a temporary pass.
Exactly.
Wow.
And then LDAT,
LDAP, all right?
which stands for Lightweight Directory Access Protocol.
Catchy.
It's a mouthful.
Okay.
It's basically a giant phone book
Okay.
for your network.
In my network, okay.
It has info about users,
Mhm.
groups, permissions,
Okay.
so systems can quickly check.
So it's like Kerberos says, are you really who you say you are?
Right?
LDAP says, okay, what are you allowed to do?
Exactly.
They work together,
They often work together, yeah.
especially in those Active Directory environments.
Especially in Active Directory, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you don't have to memorize all the details for the CCSP.
Okay, good.
But it is important to understand that
The big picture.
the big picture, yeah.
Okay,
How these protocols work,
Right.
how they fit into IAM.
right, because it's not about being a coding expert.
Yep, exactly.
It's about knowing the concepts
It is.
and how they apply to the real world.
The real world, exactly.
Okay.
And speaking of protocols,
Huh.
since we're talking about Microsoft,
Okay.
you might also come across NTLM,
NTLM. Okay, I've seen that.
which stands for NT LAN Manager.
Another catchy name.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah.
This is an older authentication protocol
Okay.
that's been around for a while,
Okay.
but it has some known vulnerabilities.
So it's like a rusty old lock.
Exactly.
Plus easy to pick.
Yeah, easier to pick.
Okay.
So Microsoft recommends disabling it.
If you can.
If you can, yes.
Okay.
Stick to the more robust Kerberos.
So out with the old,
Out with the old,
in with the new.
in with the new.
Got it.
So we've covered Kerberos,
Yep.
LDAP for enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
What about authentication on the web?
Oh, right. Like all the websites?
All the websites, yeah.
Are there protocols for that too?
There are.
Okay.
And this is where we get to SAML,
Okay.
OAuth, and OpenID Connect.
All right. So more acronyms.
More acronyms, and this is where things get a little tricky. Okay, challenge accepted?
Even for security pros.
All right, let's hear it.
So first up, SAML
SAML. Okay.
which stands for Security Assertion Markup Language.
Okay.
Basically a way for websites to trust each other.
To trust each other.
Yeah.
Fair.
When it comes to authentication,
Oh,
so
yeah.
imagine you're trying to log on to a website,
Mm-hmm.
but instead of creating a new account,
Right.
you can just use your Google account
Or my Facebook account.
or your Facebook account.
Okay.
That's MLL.
Oh, so like when you see those login with Google buttons,
Exactly.
that's what's happening behind the scenes.
That's what's happening.
Okay.
Makes things easier for users.
Yeah.
You don't have to manage a million passwords.
Right.
And technically,
It allows for secure communication
okay.
between the different systems.
So SAML is all about easy logins
Yeah,
and trust between websites.
exactly.
Okay, what about oath?
Oath. So that's a little different.
Okay.
It's not about logging you in.
Okay.
It's about giving one application permission
Okay.
to access resources
Okay.
on another application
Okay.
on your behalf
Okay.
without you having to share your password.
So it's like giving someone a key
Yes.
to a specific room in my house
Yes.
instead of the key to the whole house.
That's a great analogy.
Okay.
So let's say you're using a fitness tracker app
Okay. I use one of those.
and you want it to connect to your social media.
Right, to share my workout data.
To share your data, exactly.
Okay.
Oathos lets you do that
Okay.
without giving the fitness tracker your social media password.
So it can post for me, but it doesn't actually know my password.
Exactly.
That's good.
It just has limited access.
Okay, so oath is more about control over specific resources
It is.
than full authentication.
Right.
Okay, you mentioned OpenID Connect
The
too.
OpenID Connect, yeah.
Is that related?
It is related.
Right.
It builds on top of Oath,
Okay.
but it adds an authentication layer.
Okay.
So it's like OAuth plus identity verification.
So it's like OAuth gives them the key,
Right.
but OpenID Connect checks their ID
Exactly.
before they can unlock the door.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Okay.
And again,
Okay.
knowing the difference between these is
Yeah.
crucial for the CCSP exam.
They love to test that nuance.
They do.
Okay, oath is authorization.
Right.
OpenID Connect adds authentication.
On top of it. Yes.
Got it. Okay.
So with all these protocols and systems,
Yeah, it sounds pretty overwhelming,
it can be.
especially for smaller companies.
Especially for smaller companies, that's where MSSPs come in.
MSSPs. Okay, what is that?
Managed security service providers.
Right.
So it's like outsourcing your security team
Okay.
to the experts.
So it's like having a team of security pros
Exactly.
without having to actually hire them all.
Without having to hire them, yeah.
Okay.
They offer a whole range of services,
Like what kind of stuff?
like security monitoring,
Okay.
threat detection, incident response.
Okay.
They can even manage your entire IAM system for you.
Wow. So they do it all.
They can, yeah.
That sounds like a lifesaver.
It can be, yeah.
For companies that don't have the people or the knowledge.
Absolutely.
Do it all
Especially
themselves.
for smaller companies.
Okay, what about cloud access security brokers?
CASBs.
CASBs, yeah, what are those?
Think of them as security gatekeepers
Okay.
for your cloud apps.
Okay.
They sit between your users
Okay.
and the cloud services,
Uh-huh.
monitoring all the traffic going in and out.
So they're like an extra layer of protection,
Exactly.
specifically for the cloud.
For the cloud, yes.
Okay.
They can help prevent data leakage,
Okay.
enforce access controls,
Mhm.
protect against malware. Okay.
All sorts of threats.
So they do a lot.
They do a lot, yeah.
Okay, so CAFBs, they're powerful.
They're very useful.
Okay, what about companies that want to go all in on the cloud?
Yeah. So then you're talking about IDEAs.
IDEAs are another acronym.
Identity as a service.
Identity as a service, okay?
So basically you're taking all those IAM functions we talked about,
Okay.
authentication, authorization, user management, and moving them to the cloud.
So instead of managing everything myself,
Right.
I just pay someone else to do it.
You're essentially renting it
Okay.
from a provider.
So it's like outsourcing, but for identity.
Exactly.
Okay.
Can be a great way to save money,
Okay.
improve scalability, and free up your IT team
To focus on other things?
to focus on other priorities. Exactly.
Okay. But I bet there are some security concerns with that.
There are. Yeah.
You don't want to just trust anyone with all
Yeah.
your sensitive data.
Exactly. You got to make sure they're reputable.
Yeah. They have good security practices,
Right.
follow the rules,
All right. All that good stuff.
all that good stuff.
Okay. So it's like handing over the keys to your kingdom.
It
You
is.
want to make sure you trust the person you're giving them to.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And speaking of keys to the kingdom,
Uh-oh.
we can't forget about privileged accounts.
Oh, yeah. The super important ones.
Super important ones, yeah.
Okay.
These are the ones with elevated permissions.
Like,
Access to all the sensitive stuff.
yeah. The ones that can really cause damage.
If they get into the wrong hands.
Yeah. How do we keep those secure?
That's a great question. We're talking about accounts that can basically do anything they want in the system, right?
Yeah, like the administrator accounts.
Exactly. Those are the crown jewels that attackers always go after.
Yeah, because if they get one of those,
Yeah.
it's game over, right?
It's like getting a master key to your entire network.
Yeah. Scary stuff.
It is.
So it's not just about outside threats, though, is it?
No, it's also about insiders.
Yeah, people who might misuse their access.
Exactly.
Either intentionally or accidentally.
Exactly. So that's where privileged access management comes in.
PAM. PAM.
Yeah.
Okay, another acronym.
It's a whole set of tools and practices designed to protect these accounts.
Okay, so what are some of the key parts of a PAM solution?
Well, one of the most important is password vaulting.
Password vaulting.
So imagine a super secure safe
Okay.
where you store all those passwords.
Instead of writing them on sticky notes.
Exactly. Much better than sticky notes.
Or a spreadsheet.
Way better than a spreadsheet.
Yeah, not very secure.
No.
So it's like a digital lockbox
It is a digital lockbox.
to your super secret password.
Exactly.
Okay, but what if someone needs to use one of those passwords?
Right. So PAM solutions also have features like session monitoring, command logging.
So everything they do gets recorded.
Everything gets recorded. So there's an audit trail.
So you can see who did what.
Exactly. And when they did it.
Okay, so it's like having a security camera.
Yes.
But for your digital systems.
Exactly. It makes it a lot harder to get away with anything shady.
Right, so there's accountability.
There is.
Okay, what about emergency situations?
That's a good question. So PAM systems also have something called emergency access workflows.
Okay.
So these are predefined processes for granting temporary access.
Like if someone needs to get into a system quickly.
Right, in those break glass scenarios.
Break glass, I like that.
Yeah, so you can still maintain security,
Okay.
but also make sure that critical stuff can still get done.
Okay, so PAM, it's all about locking down those accounts.
Yeah.
Keeping track of who's doing what.
Uh-huh. And having those backup plans.
Okay, definitely important stuff for the CCSP.
Absolutely.
So we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
All those different aspects of IAM and cloud security.
It's been a journey.
It has been a journey.
But it's important to remember that technology is only part of the picture.
Right? We can have all the fancy tools in the world.
Yeah.
But if people aren't careful or they fall for tricks,
social engineering.
Right, then the systems aren't going to be very effective.
Exactly. So security awareness training is essential.
So teach people how to be safe.
Exactly. Best practices.
Okay.
How to spot phishing attempts. How to be a part of creating a secure environment.
So it's not just about technology.
It's not just about technology. It's about people, too.
It's about people and processes.
Yeah, creating that culture of security.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something to think about as you study for the CCSP.
Okay, so one final thought for our listeners.
Yeah. What advice would you give them?
Don't be afraid to go deeper into the stuff that really interests you.
Good advice.
Or the areas where you need a little extra help.
Yeah.
There are a ton of resources out there.
Tons of resources.
Online courses, practice exams.
Study groups.
Communities of security professionals.
Absolutely. A lot of smart people out there willing to share their knowledge. Yeah. So go out there and ace that exam.
Good luck.
And become a cloud security champion.
You got this.
All right. Until next time.
See you later.
See you later. Happy studying, everyone.